You were asking me about we covered a few topics there that I thought would be good to capture our thoughts on because conversation was so good. I mean, we do this a lot and we don't capture the conversation and we should. But and anyway, you were talking about you were seeing something with expected value and let's go back and revisit that if we could. What was your commentary and what were you kind of asking me about with respect to that?
Well, you see, in Blackjack,
Yeah.
uh, there's a guy who talks about it all the time that you should actually have an expected value, meaning that how much can you make in an hour in a game like Blackjack, right? And I
Mhm.
wanted to use that and ask you how this can be moved to Baccarat and what your assessment would be of a expected value that you should have. I do not know what people's bankroll is like, but we want to keep it at the lowest stakes. So let's just talk about it at a $10 table or stadium. What do you think? Like from a blackjack point of view, he said the expected value is somewhere between 60 to $100 at low stakes playing blackjack. Now, I do not know how that changes towards uh, Barker. If you can explain that, what is your intake on that?
Yeah, expected value. Okay, so the expected value in the casino when you play blackjack or baccarat, if you're playing into a random game, is down. Is baccarat. I mean, let's say the vig is 5% on banker, and you bet half on banker and half on player. Your bets, your expected value is minus 2.5% every hour. Um, so I think stuff like that, guys make videos like that uh, on the positive side because it's what people want to hear. Like I want to hear when I'm watching a YouTube video or one on Baccarat that I make $100 an hour playing. I can make $100 an hour, and they take a win and they extrapolate it over the next 20 times they play, and you know all that expected value stuff. And I'm doing a post on standard deviation, and we talked about that. All that expected value stuff is is based upon you always winning. They give you this formula and go this, and you should expect to win this much per hour. When in reality, and it should be common sense to most everyone who plays in the casino, if you simply look at the casino has the win expected value, not the player. Okay. Um, Especially in random conditions. So the expected value is you're going to lose if you play into a random game. So, they're making videos to promote whatever it is they happen to be selling. And so that's my view on expected value and long term. They always think in terms of long term, and you'll win $100 an hour if you do this and all this nonsense, and it truly is nonsense. It's not nonsense, but it's like kind of hype to get you to watch something or to buy something. That's why we have a club instead of we're selling a system. We have
Right.
sorts of approaches and systems, and what we look for is biases and we look for trends within randomness and biases that are caused by something, and we capitalize on it. And you brought up a point about I was in Vegas last time.
Right.
Okay, and what was that? I
Yeah. I mean, it was fascinating that you and me had a discussion, and I was here in Canada, and you were in Vegas. I think this is right before COVID hit, and you were saying to me that that Canada, but I've been here almost 1 week,
Mhm.
and I'm actually up $800. Right? I think it's video number 42 or something. I'm not sure, but and you said the casinos are not going to get to me. Now, I didn't ask you in that conversation that, Keith, how many hours did you spend making that $800? So
Right.
your expected value per hour would fall based on your low stakes. That's fine. And obviously, you're taking your time, you're doing the grind, and you're making that $800 in, let's just say, 1 week or 5 days. What I didn't catch from you is that how much time did you really spend on the tables based on low stakes to come up with that number? Because so obviously it's in the series of 5 days, but well, you played 1 hour one day, you played 3 hours one day, like randomly you played different amount of time. So can you explain that? How did you come up with that number, and how did you stay in that positive amount? Were you down at some point, or were you always ahead, and you slowly came up to that number in that many hours in that many days?
Yeah, well, I slowly came up to it, but I approach casino gambling, and I try to imbue this in people, but you kind of got to lead your way into it. I can't force anyone how they think or what they think or how they think about playing. But when I go, the most important thing to me, as it is to everyone, I think, but I think they lose sight of it, is not to lose. And so when I go up to a stadium game, I'm going up there. I'm going up to look for a specific kind of game, and of course, that's a game I can beat, obviously. But I'm looking for repeats, okay? Because repeats, as long as I've been playing, and repeats and strong side games are the biases that hold.
So hold on a second. Can I just interrupt you for 1 second? When you said that you go to a game that you think you can beat,
Yeah.
how can you say that with so much confidence that you are actually going to sit on this table and you know you can beat this game? What are you looking for that you are so confident in your assessment that you're going to actually beat this specific game?
Yeah, I'm looking for a game. I may not play it, okay? Like,
Really?
of course not. Well, you've seen me. Like, I don't go in. So I'll go up to stadium, which of course is the greatest option, and it's one of the greatest advantages that casino has offered us in a long time is the ability to bet small.
Right.
And so I'll go up and go, well, if I'm going to be here for a whole week, one, there's no rush to play a $50 game or a $100 game. And everybody will sit down and they'll make some random bets. And sometimes they get ahead and, they'll look at 5D and analyze that, which is fine if you like playing that style. Me, it's like, well, I just got here. I know I can get a jump start if I just have the patience and wait for a game that's going to repeat. Okay. And if I find that game, it's probably not going to be at a table because number one is, everybody bending cards and taking their time. When I sit down, I have to analyze the game. You got to figure out all sorts of stuff that's going on. I want to see a couple quick games, and I'm looking for repeats, man. I'm looking for a strong side or a repeat game that I can get in there and I can bet the lowest amount. And I won't bet $5. I mean, I'll bet $10. They'll give, and then I'll play a Fibonacci uh, up as you win into it. And my first goal is to try to get to plus $100 or plus $200 uh, in that game. And if I find a repeat game, I guarantee you I will. And I've played with Mike so much out there. He's seen me. He likes to bet +1. So there's a bunch of ways to play. You can do money management thing, like you can play +1. You can do statistics things like you and Kevin do with F5V5 or 5D.
Right.
Okay. So, or there are other people that like Sherry and some of the other folks. She has her kind of money management, but plays F.
Yeah, the GBO9 plays the
GBO9 plays a threes. That's kind of a statistics game.
right.
Some people play a system. They'll look for. I'm actually playing for a system. Okay. But here's the difference. I'll look for the game. Like if you're going to play a system, you've got to find the game that the system works in. You can't go up and just play it, and you can't see things that aren't there. Like the biggest reason most people lose is because they either force a system, or they go up and they bet too much and they don't understand variance. So anyway, not to get too far off topic, is I'm looking for a repeat game. And when I first get to the casino, if I'm going to be in Vegas for a week, you can ask Mike. I mean, we play all the time together. He knows I'll stand there and just watch the game, and I won't bet anything. And I'm waiting for the game to come around where I see a weak side, or 2 in a row, 3 in a row, and 5 in a row on the other side. And I'm going to take a stab at trying to find a repeat game. And I'll bet a Fibonacci most of the time, up as you win. Now, if I lose 1 or 2 bets, I'm just going to wait till the next game.
Right.
Okay. So that's kind of the key to it. And my first goal is to get a little bit of, quote, their money. But the most important thing is I don't want to start off in the hole, trying to get, the worst thing you could do is after 4 days, you're playing to get even, because I mean, I think it's just common sense. I'd rather be up $300 after 4 days than down, $1,500 trying to get even. And I've got a lot of action. What's the point of that? So I've learned over, I started gambling when I was 14, when I worked at Penn National Racetrack and played poker in the backside. It's better to not to get yourself in a hole,
right,
and to play the stakes that are offered to you. If you can play for $10, start there. I mean, honest, I really believe that, and qualify, temper what you think you can win. Everybody want, like, a lot of guys, I want to go make $500 a day. Well, you might and you might not. It's like if you work at McDonald's, here's the flaw that gets extrapolated to casino gambling. And I see this all the time, and maybe you can relate to this. Well, if you know how to win, why don't you just go win and make, $1 million or $1,000 a day? Well, if I go to McDonald's and make $12 an hour, I can make $12 an hour. But that doesn't mean I can make $1 million. I know how to make money at McDonald's, but I don't know how to make $1 million at McDonald's. Well, it's kind of the same at the casino. Because I can go in and make $100 or $200 doesn't mean I can make $1 million. Now, the reason I do that first is I'm going to not abuse, but I'm going to utilize the biggest advantage they handed me. They gave me the opportunity to bet $5. Okay. Now I know you can bet 0, but when that 0 goes from 0 to no bet to $50 a bet, that's a pretty big swing. Okay. So they can get you, what they'll get you with is not necessarily, they'll get you with variance, because if you bet $50 hands with $1,000, okay, that's 20 chips. Normal variance is plus or minus 20 over 100 hands. Now, of course, it could be -3, it could be +3, or anywhere in between. But eventually, if it's the old adage, like they used to say in casino, all we have to do is keep them playing, and we get all the money. And it's true, but the caveat is we have to keep them playing. We have to get them to overbet, which is bet more money than their bankroll can sustain. Thank you. And variance will get them. And they have to. And the other caveat is, if I get them playing into one of these random games or one of these games where I have a big advantage, we'll get all the money. And that's what they do. So, I know that's their goal. So I said, okay, well, you're going to let me play for $5. Well, let me see if I can get a little bit of money to play with that I'm not going to risk it. And that's an extremely conservative way. And like you said, I know a lot of players after, what'd you say? I was there 5 days and I know $800.
Yeah.
It's not fantastical. If I put that on the internet, it doesn't get me 10 members to the club. People want to see the guy betting $5,000 walking in El Cortez and winning it. and getting a lot of clickbait, but I don't do that. You know, we're a club and we talk about winning. So winning is a strategy. And I think my strategy is, a lot of people have said that to me, is you're really consistent. Yeah. I'm not you got to watch you say always. I'm probably not going to lose when I may not win a lot, you know, but I am not going to lose, man. And when you start putting not losses together, then that starts adding up, because eventually you'll win if you can control yourself to not to lose, or when you lose, just lose just a little bit. The wins will come. Now, they may not be big wins. They may be, you know, you're betting $5-10. How much can you win, right? $100, $200 on a good day, you know. But now if after 5 days, I've got that $800, I'm up, and then I see and it quite honestly doesn't happen much, because I'll keep the money. I'm going home with their money. But if I walk up and see a repeat game where I could take advantage of it, and I got $800 up, you know, well, then maybe I'll start betting 25 and 50 on them, you know. But yeah, you'll very rarely see me play at that level. I mean, unless a lot of players are there and look, we're all here having a good time, let's play a shoe, as happened a couple times.
When you meet GBO9, Kevin, and Real Rabbit, and we were all sitting on one table in Red Rock, I believe, and we were playing $25 to $50 to $100 a stakes. So it's not like we don't.
No.
And the reason why we were all sitting there together is because we were actually all kind of discussing each bet.
Yeah.
And we all came out positive out of that specific shoe that we played, because we are 5 minds with so much knowledge, that we are actually discussing, okay, what does each of us think about the next hand and how it should be played out. And that's a very powerful statement when you are all, so many of minds are sitting together who have such wealth of experience and knowledge. I took that and I'm like, this is great if all of us could do that, because we all can discuss and make the right decision about the next bet, right?
Yeah, well, ideally, when we have seminars, that's the idea of it. You know, very seldom when we have a seminar does that come to fruition, because we've always got so much everything else going on, you know. But yeah, I mean, and we used to do that in a practice session, you know. We'd all get together and I'd deal the cards and go, okay, what do you think? And we were truly up to like a 70 or 80% hit rate, you know, picking hands. And you know, a little bit of that was luck. But one of the things I got, and I think it was Leonard Winterheimer that asked me one time, Trillion. I like his new nickname, by the way, Trillionaire. I like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Trillionaire. That's good. He's been with us a long time, man. I appreciate that. But he said, well, it's a 50-50 game, man. I should be able to, you know, it's easy. It's 50-50. And then, you know, I pointed out that when you're playing into 50 or close, obviously close to 50-50, we know that. That's the hardest game to win, man. You know, like 50-50 is the hardest game to win. Like, it's a pick. If you're sports betting, it's 50-50. It's a toss up, man. Who the hell knows who's going to win? It's the same thing. If it was 60-40 and you're playing long term and playing more than once, you know what to do. You just bet the 60 side. That's all. So yeah, 50-50, man, is the hardest game to win, the hardest game to pick, the hardest game to find a trend, the hardest game to find a bias in, because just for that reason, it's 50-50, man. You know.
Yeah, one of the things that you were talking about, and it's a good thread you just opened up about it, regarding what is it that you need to think about when you are sitting in a game, right? There's like, everybody has commented on it, and I made a comment that you need to go to the casino with a plan. I think you saw that, right? Because I said you can't go to casino without a plan. And guess what? When you go there with a plan, the plan goes to hell once you start not following through with it, right?
Yeah, a lot of times. Yeah, you got to have a plan. And, you know, I always say, if you're going to sit down and play, if you're going there to meet some folks and you're going to sit down and play, and I know Kevin does that a lot, and that puts a lot of pressure on him, because, you know, what's even more pressure is when they are standing behind a table and say, okay, let me see you win now. You know,
yeah.
You know what I mean? and he handles it really well. You know, he comes off, he gets his 5D, and you know, he plays a lot of games. He wants to go, get in, and get out. So you've got to do a little bit more analysis. I've added a little bit more patience to the game, which I think is critical. If you're going to play a lot, you know, especially if you're going into casino, I've added patience because I don't want to lose, man. I mean, you know, I know Mike has said to me a couple times when we're out there playing, you know, you're upset, you know, you lost $75. I go, yeah, man, I got to make that up now, you know.
Right.
So
No, there's another thing that I've noticed, which is very powerful, by the way, and I think you would agree on this one for sure, is that if let's just say in your plan that you're saying, okay, I'm playing $10, and I can go up as a win or lose, whatever. But
right,
my goal out of this specific shoe is $100. Just a number I'm giving you, right?
yeah,
$100, right? Based on your stakes.
right,
Now, I've seen this has happened to me where I go into that specific shoe, and yes, whatever strategy I'm using or bias I'm thinking about, I'm actually end up making 300 or
yeah,
even 600 out of that shoe. But that was not my intent initially from that shoe. But because I won a few ties, or there was a bias, or there was a long run, I ended up making
yeah,
from 100 to $300, and which was a good shoe for me. That, hey, the 3 hours that I was expecting to spend on three shoes, if it's 1 hour averagely per shoe, I actually got it within one shoe, and then I can actually now leave, right?
yeah.
Because
There
I
you go. Yeah,
met
there
my
you go.
goal. I
That's
wanted to
right.
come and make $300 for the day, but I ended up making it in 1 hour, and you'll see that trend happen. But the key here, regardless if your stake is $100 or $10, is did you follow through on what you decided to do on that particular shoe that you wanted to play? That, okay, I'm going to make $100. That's my goal for that shoe. So you're not pressing your bets. You are following through with your low stakes, and you ended up making more than what you expected,
Yeah.
right? So
Well,
this is
that's
where the
good.
expected value might come in. That your expected value from what is your expected value from each shoe
Well,
based on your bankroll, Keith. I think that is my question to you regarding blackjack. That guy was
it,
talking about is based on your bankroll, what is your expected value per shoe? Mine is $100 as an example. I'm just giving you, and I can make 100, or I can make up to 1,000 out of
yeah.
that.
Well, you know, you know, a couple thoughts is expected value is the way you're framing it. To me, it sounds like what is your stop win or stop? What is the least when you say expected value, and then you say, well, I get to 100 and then I won 600. Well, that's not a stop win. You kept going. What is expected value is, I think it's more better said is what would I like to win if I'm playing four shoes today, and how much what would be a good win per shoe? So the expected value is a calculation based upon long-term statistics, which you can't really do that because we go and we play this shoe, then we play that shoe, and we bet 5 bets here and no bets here. But expected value is kind of a calculation based on long-term math. But I think what you're talking about is what would I like to win in this shoe? What would I be happy with? And once I get to that point, what am I not going back? Okay. Now, here's what I've discovered, and I think you'll find this to be the case, which is why I bet a kind of conservative up as you win. Because every time I win, and I bet every time, and we used to tell blackjack players this too, every time you win in Baccarat, it's because you won on a streak. Now, a streak could be I was doing the three system and 3 out of 4 of them won.
Right,
Okay.
right,
Or
right.
I was betting system 40 and nothing went 3 in a row. Or I was betting repeats and I won 3 times in a row. If you go back and analyze your game when you won, you very seldom won, just like you said. I mean, to get up that much, you've got to win consistently. So that's why I've kind of edged up into up as you win a little bit, which gives it more torque and more advantage. And the other thing that we've noticed too with Mike playing in Commerce Casino in California
Right.
is, an old blackjack player told me this. His name was Harvey Garrison. He goes, and I was playing with him at Trump Plaza. I was like 22, we were doing club style blackjack. He said, let me tell you something, Keith. He said, when it's there, it's there. And when it ain't there, it ain't there. And it ain't there. And that's so true. And I've seen him. I stood there and watched him make $15,000 at first base in blackjack. Okay. Because he'd win 1,000 and he'd stack it right up. It's there. It's kind of the same with Baccarat. When the threes are there, they're there. And when you're betting the threes and there's 1 3 and then there's another confirmed 3, don't bet it again in that shoe. Okay. Okay. Because it ain't working in this shoe. And that's what's so great about Baccarat is when that predictability comes or when the bias is there, it tends to hold. And that's what people see. Now, the problem comes in when they think it never ends, and that's when the casino gets their money back. That's right. So that's why I kind of push, I like betting up as you win a little bit. Negative progressions are okay, and it's great. I like negative progressions if you're betting a system, but it has to be small stakes. If you can bet $10, that's fine. If you got to bet 50 and 100, I'm not so big on negative progressions because you need a huge bankroll, especially if you lose 2 progressions. But and no matter how much money you have, if you lose 2-3 grand in a session, and unless you're an egomaniac and like to talk about it, I mean that's not a good thing. That kind of hurts you, But it's because I learned that playing blackjack all the time. Now, the thing with blackjack, when we were playing blackjack, when we would mostly bet negative progressions at third base. And it would be the dealer's not going to beat me 3 times in a row. Now, I could affect the cards. Baccarat, you can't, obviously. But I could affect the cards. I could stand, I could hit. Maybe you've heard this. We used to always tell people this. How the hell do you lose blackjack? Okay. And it was a serious question because then I preface it with this. You can bet what you want. Okay. You can double, you can split, you can take insurance. You get 3-2 on blackjack. What did I miss? You could stand, you can hit, you can do anything you want. You can play your cards any way you want. You can increase your bet in some of the cases. You can play your cards any way you want, yet you still lose. Why did you lose? And of course the answer was because you bet the dealer was going to break and the dealer didn't break. Okay. Or you've made so many doubles and the dealer didn't break. So that's why you lost. You lost because the dealer didn't break. But again, when we would hit or stand was based upon I have a 3 bet target. Okay. He's not going to beat me 3 times in a row. That's how we used to play blackjack because we would play a little bit closer to dealer strategy a lot of times. If we get 11, we wouldn't automatically double, maybe we'd want to hit it again,
Right.
And so if you play like that, you'd be surprised how many more hands you win. Okay. Because you're playing the cards. You're not playing what you should quote play. And if you go play blackjack sometime and you got a lot of nerve and it's a low stakes game, just set at third base and sit there and play straight dealer strategy. Don't double, don't split, just hit everything to 17, no matter what the dealer has. Everybody will look at you like you're nuts, right? And you'll break some hands that'll be embarrassing and stuff, but you'll probably play about even. You'll notice that. I mean, look, the dealer does it all night and beats your butt, right? Okay. So now, of course, the advantage is if you break before him, which is called the break push rule. Okay. If you break and the dealer break, which is really a tie, right? You broke and the dealer broke. Well, the dealer wins. So that's where they get the advantage at is the break push rule. But anyway, that's why I like playing. It's okay to play a progression, But when you're playing a progression in Baccarat, and we do it too, and we do it with the threes system, you say, okay, he's not going to beat me 3 times in a row. You bet a 1 opposite, then you bet a 2 opposite, then you bet 3 on the run. And, how often does he beat you 3 times in a row in that situation? Well, if you bet it a lot, you get too many times, right? But that's the idea of it. Now, the thing with blackjack is, and this is, I'm trying to tie it into our standard deviation talks, is I'm trying to quantify when do we have a greater chance to win? Not because this is a 2 in a row and this is a 3 in a row and yada, 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 like a real numbers thing, and it's kind of boring, it doesn't get a lot of play. It's not sexy and exciting,
Right.
but it's based on, if we could find something like that, like, well, when you're in the third standard deviation of a shoe, chances are there's a 95% chance that you're going to win the next shoe, and it will go shoe over shoe. It won't be within this shoe. I don't think that will do much within a shoe. And I think Mookie said, well, that, people want to bet in the shoe. I know, I know. But I think the thing with standard deviation like that, I think it applies to your game personally too. If you keep your own statistics, like you pretty much got to run pretty close to 50%, very close to it. So if you start picking bad bets, it seems almost magical. In the next, if you could wait 3 or 4 days and go back, you'll see it edging back towards the 0 line again. So that's the magical thing about mathematics and statistics, that you could track it personally or long term with consecutive things, and it'll still come back to normalcy, which is really interesting, and it's something worth talking about. But like I said, it isn't sexy, it isn't like, wow, here's a way to do it in the shoe and make 10 chips, and it's meticulous. But those things, and that's with the app too. I was when I did the ST version, I was tracking numbers. Most common, least common number, average score, the mean average. The most common and least common is the what they call the mode average. And so all those things are really interesting to me. And if we could find something like that in Baccarat, it would be worthwhile. So that's what I'm talking
about. Maybe I'll put it from a different angle. I mean, it's really fascinating what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. But perhaps the expected value in blackjack is kind of different than how Baccarat might be, because I've noticed about when I play with you, how we do some sessions, you and me, just to kind of check, see some of the approaches that we have, and you are doing it with my F5 V5 approach. That you are looking at is not the whole game that we played 3, 4, 5 times we played it. You are actually looking at, okay, how many hands did Canada Bac won? And how many did he lose? And what's the plus minus of that, right? What is the...
Exactly. I'm big on variance. Yeah.
Yes, the variance. So maybe the expected value is more towards blackjack, but this plus minus of where you are in Baccarat applies more. So let's just say if you're a $10 player and you won 10 units, so your expected value would fly into it like $100, right? Because that's how many hands you won. If you are playing flat betting, as an example, right?
Right. Well, if your expected value in 68% of the time, like there's like, they talk about that bell curve. We've all seen that. And in the first quadrant on the plus side and the minus side, 68%, if you're playing random mathematics, statistics, 68% of the time, you're going to win or lose 9 chips. So you're right at the edge of a win of, if you say plus 10 and you're flat betting. If you get to 10, you're in the second quadrant of the standard deviation of Baccarat. Like it's a little more than 68% of the time you edged your way over that. So that's a little bit unexpected.
Right.
Okay.
It's usually 5 units, right?
Plus right. Now 5 units is kind of right in halfway of the win or halfway of the loss. So if you win plus or minus 5, well, that's a pretty good, you didn't do too bad.
maybe instead of EV, we should call it EU.
You can
Expected.
do that.
What is
Expected units.
expected units per shoe,
Yeah,
right?
right. Okay. So in 68% of the time, you're gonna we'll round it to 10, plus or minus 10. Now, the idea is to find a trend, which is something that occurs in randomness that is identifiable, or better yet, a bias. And I have a bias shoe that Mike sent me the other day. It was just, a 14 in a row and a 3 in a row and then an 8 in a row. It was just incredible. And that
Right.
was probably a bias. The cards were sorted or not shuffled enough, or something went haywire with that shoe. And I've seen it online too. They've actually come in and just changed the cards.
Oh,
Um, so that's really what's that that's what that's about, is what do you expect to win, and on the downside is what is your expected loss. So what I'm trying to keep from happening is the expected loss. And I do that with patience. It's like, I don't really see anything in this shoe. Like you said, I'm there all week, and for goodness sakes, you're up $800. And a lot of people go, well, that's not so much after what do you mean? That's better interest in the bank. And, I tell you what, why don't you show me how to do that every week now for the next 5 weeks?
right.
And consistency is important. It's not the most important thing, but it is important. And, like I said, the casino's job is to get you over bet. And again, that variance thing, if it's plus or minus 20, 68% of the time, are you going to hit minus 20? Probably not. Are you going to hit plus 20? Probably not. But if you do, and then you hit it again, the casino beats you. Now, what they normally do is they just chip away at it. They just keep chipping away at it. They want you to bet, and it's obvious. It's just common sense. That's why they raise the stakes. They
Right.
want you to bet as much as you could possibly will, especially on table games. And if you can't bet a lot, if you have the discipline to bet $5 and $10, then they want you to bet fast. Because if you bet a lot and you bet fast, the variance is going to get you. So when you're at stadium, bet slow. Wait for the game. When you're at a table, you usually bet slow, but it's slow that for the next game, who's just going to sit there with, guys bending cards in an hour for a
Right.
shoe,
Well,
or even wait 30 hands for the next good situation. And that's how they get you, man. And, from this thread is, if you want to be a better player, is develop patience and thoughtfulness. And, that's what it's all about. And I'm really conscious, about getting new members and stuff, because we always have to have members to support the forum. But I'm not going to write propaganda to get people to join. Every once in a while we dabble in it, I guess. But I'm not going to write propaganda to get you to join the club. It's like, we want to keep this legitimate and keep everything, open, and talk about a lot of different ways and ways people actually go play the game and have had success at. And to let them know that there's no magic formula. Even GBO9 said, hey, this is I remember from the forum, from the seminar, it's no panacea, yeah.
right.
But I'm going to tell you, and I've been playing a lot, if you find that game, that'll work. It'll work. And the game is biased. Okay. It'll hold. It's the same with blackjack. Before we did NBJ, we used to do what was called target. And all we would do is just scan the casino in Atlantic City, and you could bet $5. And hell, when they had the Taj Mahal, you could bet $2 in the afternoon. We just walk around. If we'd see a crowded table, guess what? Everybody's winning at that table. We would try to jump in. It's just, there's the bias shoe. The dealer's breaking more than he should.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with Baccarat. I should write something called Target Baccarat. You should, especially with stadium, is just wait for the game. And if you're wrong, you only bet $10. Wait for the next one. That's all. But you got to have the patience and the discipline to say, this isn't my game. And if you can conquer that, I know Kevin's good at that. Set any hands, I'm out of here. If you can conquer that, this isn't my game, you'll win. You'll win. And I think actually, even with some basic concepts, you could probably win if you're disciplined like that, because it's hard to beat you when you're disciplined, you know.
Yeah,
And
I
I
mean,
think
I think most folks in the club, especially, and the ones who would want to join and all, is that they want to understand that how can they make $500 a day, as an example,
right,
right? And that itself is the most challenging task, because if everybody
yeah,
could do that, you said that if everybody could
yeah.
do that, then the
Well,
casino would be out of business,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and even if you know, it's like I think get that out of your head. The most important thing is you want to go there and not lose. That's the most important thing, not lose, and the wins will come. You know, it's like anything. You hear that strategy a lot. Is you keep throwing yourself in the situation, and
Right.
eventually it'll swing your way. Um, you know, if you keep showing up and trying to get this job, eventually someone's going to say, "Yeah, come on in, we'll talk to you." You know, and it's the same thing. Eventually, the variance when you're not losing, you're not losing. Eventually, it's going to go. You know, it's going to swing to your side, and you have to have the patience to wait for that, and the discipline not to force it. And you know, it is kind of funny when people lose, they bet up as you keep betting more. Like you're
100%.
losing.
Yeah.
Don't bet. You know, you're not in a good place mentally. You're making stupid bets. Mike said something to me the other day. Kind of actually it was just the other day when he called. He said, you know, he goes, I can't tell you how many times if I'm on tilt. He goes, I'll start betting against a run. You'll be standing behind me going, what the hell are you doing that for? You know,
Right.
and I don't know. He'll go. You know, so you got to keep your mental clarity and whatnot, and you can't force anything. You have to go and wait because the casino is they're at the long term. They've got 10 tables or 100 tables depending on where you're playing. The game's constantly going. They're going to get their vig, man. It's churning them in and out. It's like that guy from Wolf of Wall Street. You know, he kept going. You know,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. You know, I got another idea. Let me sell you this stock. You know, but yeah, I mean that's been the secret to my success. And you know, can I boast on YouTube that I bet 5,000? I wouldn't bet $5,000 on a hand if I could. If somebody would give it to me, I wouldn't bet five. If somebody would hand me $5,000 and say, "Go bet it," what do you think's going to win? I wouldn't. I wouldn't do it anyway. You know, I think that's stupid. I do.
Yeah.
I think that's really stupid. First of all, you can bet $5,000 and you don't need to go play, man.
Exactly.
So I get the same thrill for $10, and that's the thing about it. I mean, you know, if you know, we all verge on the realm of we need to go to Gamblers Anonymous sometimes. I
Yeah.
think, you know, I tried to go to the meeting and pass out cards, but they wouldn't let me. No. They said, no, you can't come here. But well, I said, what if they have a relapse? You know,
No,
that's
it's
terrible.
very,
That's
very,
terrible.
very, very interesting conversation we're having today. I mean, this is where I think people's mindset needs to be very clear about exactly how to play this game. And like we said, we're not going to use EV as an example for blackjack. We're going to just use EU, because
You, yeah.
what is the
Expected
expected
you to,
number of units do you expect from this
yeah.
shoe, or from that in that hour that you're
Yeah.
playing that
And
specific
and it
shoe?
might go like that. It'd be nice to get you know, it's good to have a target, you know.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I want to try to get the +5. And
yeah,
and again, you know, it could be a simple thing like this. And I'll play games with myself a lot of times. And I do think in units. But
right,
you know, don't lose the value that it is real money to your point earlier. But like if I'm up 2 chips, I'll go, this looks like a real good bet here. There's a 5 in a row. I'm going to bet it's going to go to 6. I'm not going to bet one, man. If I'm spot betting, I'll bet 2. Or if I win the 1, 2, 3, I guarantee you I'm going to bet the 5. If I did it up as you win Fibonacci 1, 2, 3 at 5 or $10, I'll bet the 5. A lot of times I'll start at 2 because 10 is a good place to start. But
but let me put it in a different way. Like, what's the minimum wage in the U.S. right now? Is it what,
the
$15 an
minimum
hour?
what?
Minimum wage. What's the minimum
Uh,
wage?
I don't know. What is it like?
$15?
15 bucks an hour. I don't know.
Right, right.
Something.
So if somebody that works at McDonald's and makes $15 an hour, right, and they work 8 hours a day, that's what, $130 or whatever, give and take,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
So
mean,
but it's guaranteed money. I understand that, right?
of course. Yeah.
And it's your hard work per hour. So what I'm saying is that why do people not have a mindset that, okay, forget about $15. If my mindset says that if I play small stakes and make even 50 to 100, let's just give you a number between 50 and 100, right, per hour, is that not doable? Is if making 50 to $100 an hour not doable in the casino? Is it because they play with your mind, the environment, the stakes, the bankroll, everything is like on top of you, and you just cannot sustain that level of per hour. So the expected units that you want to win, if it's 5 units, that's $50 an hour, $50 an hour, right? I mean, why is that so difficult?
Well, I'll answer it this way: is because when you have a job, to your point, it's guaranteed. You're there. You're going to be working. You know what you're going to do. When you walk into the casino, everything is a variable. Okay. Like what if the dealer stops breaking if you're playing blackjack and you run into 5 bad shoes? Or what if you run into a shoe if you run into a shoe that's all 1s, 2s, and 3s, and then you get a 4 and that screws up system 40 and everything else, there's no trends, there's no predictability. The opportunities didn't present themselves. You could try the only way you can do per hour wins is one, if you're spot betting and doing statistical things like threes or Kevin's 5D or your F5, then if you get enough opportunities to bet and you win enough of them, then yes, you can do that. But what happens when it doesn't? Well, now the next hour you're trying to make up for it, which is always bad. Okay. So the opportunity doesn't present itself. It's like comparing apples and
But
oranges.
isn't
I want to make
Didn't Mike say to you that because Commerce Casino has so many tables, and you can just hop from one table to another to find that variance in that GBO9 strategy, and you'll always come out mostly a winner. So you are spot betting. So if he does that 10 times in 1 hour, going from shoe to shoe and find that bias and bets, maybe he'll lose 3 and maybe he'll win 7. So he's ahead, right? Because
you can do that. Yeah. Last week he said to me, man, he goes, I couldn't believe it. He goes, the 3s, he goes, every one of them was attached to another 3. He goes, I couldn't even find a bet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, it's like, really? I said, exactly. I said, you're kidding me. He goes, no. He goes, everything was like 3, 3, 3, 3. And then I go to the other table and 3, 3. And then I bet it go to 4 and it would go opposite, or I bet it would go to, so variance catches up with you. And I said, well, I said, you're looking at that as a negative thing. And I look at it more as a positive thing, because if you think about it, if the 3s, if you have a lot of independent 3s where, okay, you bet the opposite, it goes opposite, and then you bet and it goes opposite, and you run into that time after time.
Right.
In the long term, it has to catch up, unless it's a bias, but it's not. It has to catch up. So if they clump individually, then they'll clump together to catch up. It was the same with blackjack. If they clump up, low cards are following low cards too much, and high cards are following high cards. If they keep shuffling the cards, eventually, over the next couple shoes, you'll see that predictability dissipate.
Right.
And so it has to. So if they clump in one instance or run together in one instance, they got to catch up to randomness in the other instance. Is usually what happens. And that's what I'll say about that. So, but that's a good thing, because now as soon as they're clumping up, they become predictable.
Right.
And when they're predictable, and the predictability for the 3s is, if it starts off with 2 attached 3s, don't bet it in the rest of the shoe. I can tell you that for sure. So
I like what GBO9 does.
Oh, absolutely.
He posts actually some of the shoes that he encountered, and it's impressive what you see on those shoes that is profitable if there's a bias there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. No, but that's why I started this thread too. It's like we want to hear, the downside. Like everybody can talk about winning and do this and do that, and this is what won, and here's how I won. And I don't mean that in a negative way towards anybody, but let's talk about some of the hard things, some of the things that aren't as sexy to talk about. Like, I'm talking about standard deviation over
Right.
5 shoes, and
Yeah.
why do you lose, man? Tell me that, because that's something that we can work on, and people say, I remember you started off, well, it should be easy to win. All right. It's easy to win, right? No, it's not easy, man. There's all sorts of things that come into play. And, that's what I think everybody in the Beat the Casino knows, that it's hard to win sometimes. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy.
Yeah.
But, and you got to relish those easy times. When it's there, is bet it,
Yeah. I mean,
got their money, bet it.
You should talk about, open a thread on this whole not E. We won't talk about EV, but more like not expected value, but more like expected units. That in a conversation to see what everybody's mindset is like, or what they expect per hour.
Yeah.
From
Well, I say get rid of that. I don't like that. I got to be honest with you. I don't like expected wins or per hour or any of that stuff.
Well, I'm trying to put it together with employment, because a lot of people, even though they don't want to lose, I mean, Alice you put one of the videos from Alice, and he said that he was a mathematician, right? And
yeah, he was. He
at some point that he knows that he can do better playing Baccarat, and he did. He said he played Baccarat, and his confidence level was really up there based on NOR, and that he could actually win every time or most of the time.
Well, that was, God rest his soul. I don't mean to admit that was bullshit. Okay, you don't win every time, and I've played with him more than everything. And quite honestly, he was a better blackjack player than he was.
Yeah, he was. Player. Yeah,
but I mean, again, it's like, from my philosophy, from seeing all these guys like him and other experts who never lose and have the masters. I've seen them all lose. All the people that have come here that are, and I won't mention any names, that are idolized as the masters and where's their master class and all this and all that. I've played with every one of them, and I've seen every one of them lose more than what they would ever tell you. Okay. And that's not to smash anybody, because their contributions were many. Okay. But what happens to some of those guys is their ego gets so big because the adulation of everybody. Oh, how are you doing this? It's so wonderful, and give me all this. And they never told you about the 10 times that they lost with it. And that's why I try to it's just reset your expectations, play lower stakes, and try not to lose. And if you do lose, change the game. That's a good formula. Okay. And you'll start putting smaller wins together. Now, it has to be a significant win. These guys that come in and say, we used to have guys in the forum, I don't know what happened to them, but they come in and they go, well, we bet $1,000 units and we go and win 1 chip. And I said, well, that's good. And even Ellis would point out, he goes, and then you'd leave the casino. He goes, the casino doesn't know you left, He goes, you're coming back the next day. You're betting $1,000. You could win or lose it. Now you got lucky 3 weeks in a row and won it on the first bet, which, there's stop win or loss with $1,000. It's like I've betting 1 chip. It's not statistically significant. You got to win a couple chips. But when you play for lower stakes, you can see the significance of your bets. And again, though, but if you're betting a progression, remember one of the points I made with you, if you're betting a progression, you're trying to push variance further away. Like it's 50-50, right? On one bet. Right. Then you add 2 and the variance goes out. Okay. And it gets to the first standard deviation of plus or minus 9. Well, when you bet a progression, what you're trying to do, you're trying to push variance in tighter or out further, however you want to look at it, so that you don't go over the top. Like, in other words, if you have 4 bets, You lose 3 of them and win 1. You only won 25% of the bets, yet you broke even. Okay, that's pushing variance out. Okay. Now you can go back to 1 and then you can try it again. Well, if you miss it this time, now the variance ate up all the money you just won. So that's what progressions does. It tries to fluctuate the variance so that you always stay closer to the 0 line, and then try to get. Now the problem with progressions is negative is when you start winning it, you're still winning it like you're flat betting because you're winning the first bet. So you're winning it like you're flat betting, but losing it in a negative progression. So you can kind of win less hands, but God forbid if you lose a progression. And of course, everyone hits the wall, with the reverse up as you win betting, So I think it called Labrachère, whatever's double up, you're going to hit the wall. You can't just keep doing that. So, there's a lot of things to consider. Kevin has good counsel. Flat bet gets your hands-1 ratio up without keep the variance at what it normally is and try to win flat betting. You're not really flat betting. You're really betting 0 and 1. But I say bet 0 and 1. His will be 0 and 50 or 0 100. I say, look, man, if you can go play 0 and $10 at Stadium Baccarat or at a table, do that and get your hands-1 ratio up. So anyway, well, I think we covered a lot of things, don't you think? All right, Ken. Good to see you. Everybody wants to know when you're going to do another F5 V5 thing. So.
Hey, I'm open anytime.
All right. Well,
confidence in my approach, and
we'll do it maybe Monday or Tuesday. See how you're.
No, Monday is a holiday here, and I'm not here, so.
Oh.
It's the Labor Day weekend. Remember?
Oh, that's right. It's Labor Day.
So maybe perhaps maybe in 2 weeks.
Okay.
The following Tuesday, perhaps.
All right. Throw that in the thread, will you? Throw that in the thread, or you want me to?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. We've tentatively scheduled it for 2 weeks out.
Okay.
But, I'm going to put this in the win-loss thread. So, all right, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Keith.
Bye-bye, Ken.
Bye-bye.